You've been doing some reading recently, haven't you?
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was like worthy of an announcement on the pod.
Yeah, no, I enjoy reading anyway.
You know what? I went into your obviously you got a new house. Went into your office the other day, mainly just because I was following my daughter around, and I looked up, and you do have quite the book collection.
Yeah, I'm proud of it. As we just had what we're calling the cinema room because the kids love a film night and stuff. We just had that done. I've had a lovely media wall done in the house, and either side of the TV, I'm just going to have the most amazing books, and it's going to be the thing that I'm in charge of.
Mr. Men.
Yeah, Mr. Men, Biff and Kip.
Yeah, Stickman.
Yeah, no, I love my books. If you've ever listened to another pod I love called Founders, and if you're entrepreneurial like me and Jake, you'll love that podcast.
That'll be your second favorite podcast.
Yeah, second behind this one. So yeah, I love a book, and I'm reading a book right now called Traction, which has been out for a long time, to be honest. But it's a fantastic book. Really, it's a really practical business book. Doesn't really go through, the whole like mindset stuff, and it's just a bit waffly and crap. But this one is a really great book. I'm only 100 pages in, but I've learned a lot already. Most of which kind of I inherently knew. Like I wanted to put more focus on, but when I look at Revamp as a business, I would put them into 3 main buckets. But Traction has 4 main buckets, and you should kind of overhaul your business using those 4 buckets to see what you're really actually good at and where your constraints are. And 2 of them are obvious: marketing and sales. 1 operations, and the other bucket is finances. And I text you last night saying these are the 4 buckets. I think we do 3 of them really well, and I think we do 1 of them averagely.
You didn't actually specify which one.
I thought it'd be obvious. So I think the average one is operations. I think we've been really good at managing the teams.
I think we've got better over the last year. I think like if you listen back to some of the earlier episodes, particularly at the end of last year, we were kind of talking a little bit more how like this year was going to be our aim to just operationalize, systemize a lot of the business. Yeah. And I think we've definitely taken some strides to do that. But you know what it is for me? It's like the little things. It's like the things that you see other studio owners do incredibly well that oftentimes get neglected from us, which are like those seasonal fun things in sessions, like a fun finisher of a group session or like, it was Easter, and we ran an Easter competition where we hid Easter stickers around the studios, and like, obviously we did it, we still did it, and we ticked that off, but it was only really kind of like, oh shit, we need to kind of do something this week.
It's reactive, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas I think some other studio owners get this done, they get this right, like some of them do really, really well.
But then they'll fall down on other areas.
Yeah,
having all 4 buckets full and doing them really well is really hard. And I love a quote I heard the other day with an entrepreneur. He said, all businesses are shit. They all have shit. It's just how much shit.
Yeah.
And because you look at like, oh, that business, amazing. Like if you were to jump inside like a Google, for example, right? Or an Alphabet, shall I say. And you were to actually look inside that business, look under the hood, there would be so much terrible about it.
Yeah.
But obviously no one sees that. So it's trying to have as less shit as possible, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I texted you last night with how we see our people, our teams, and how I think we can get better at that. I think like systematically, we're pretty good. Like you've built some amazing systems within the business. That can always be improved, but that's
reviewed. Like sometimes we have things running, which like we look back on and be like, we could probably change that.
Yeah, make it a bit better.
Yeah.
But I definitely think the management of teams is an area that I think we can improve on. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about the 4 buckets, what we do well, what you're thinking about, what I'm thinking about in each bucket. And then hopefully going to make the audience think better about their business. So that's my plan. So we'll start with marketing.
Yeah, so quickly, what are the 4 buckets?
Marketing, sales, operations, and finances.
Got it. Yeah, let's start with marketing.
So let's start with marketing because you are the GOAT. So talk to me how you're thinking right at the moment, because you had a little rant at me before this pod. And
I think it's something we've always realized, something we've always addressed in this podcast, which is we hinge all of our marketing efforts on one metric only, and that is our cost per acquisition. The reason we do that is because we know, like, if we can measure, okay, how much does it cost for us to acquire a customer? everything is downstream from that, because what then happens is like, okay, right, we've got that number where we want it. We've stabilized that. What are now other areas of the business which need to be addressed? So like we could, for example, we could acquire customers for like 0, but if nobody's continuing and nobody's retaining, then we need to address our retention rate. So that's something that we would need to kind of dive into. So I think what's so good about a streamlined acquisition channel is that you can actually start to look for bottlenecks within the business and then address them accordingly. So I'd say cost per acquisition, because I think that gives the best measure in terms of the overall objective of the business. We always say like marketing, advertising, whatever it's an amplification of your business, right? So it's not there to fix it. It's there to just expose it.
It's a great performance indicator, isn't it?
Yeah. So like using Facebook ads as an example, like obviously our biggest acquisition channel is Facebook ads. So with that in mind, what we tend to do is we run ads on a continuous basis. Obviously there's a few things and that we might be changing if you listen to a few episodes back. But ultimately, we know Facebook ads is our acquisition channel. So we need to put all of our time and attention into making that the best it can be. Okay. I think the mistake a lot of studio owners make is that they'll run a few ads. They won't technically, measure the performance. They'll then ask for a few referrals. They'll then post some, organic content out with a new offer. They'll then email, and then suddenly it's like they've got all of these things that they're trying to do all at once, but they don't actually know which one's actually yielding any positive results.
Yeah, when I get angry when studio owners go, "Yeah, I ran ads, they didn't work."
Yeah, it's like anybody that says, "Oh, anything doesn't work." Yeah. It's like actually, you probably
show me the evidence.
I think Facebook is doing pretty well. I think if it wasn't for like 90% of business owners running ads on their platform, I don't think your business is different to any others. I think ultimately they work, and I think having the maturity to say they work, I think is a big thing, because then what you can then do is take accountability and be like, okay, well, how am I going to fix it? What am I going to do? What research am I going to dive into in order to kind of get better at this task and this activity? So like for me, it's like, okay, right, Facebook ads is our biggest channel. We have other channels which are propped up against that channel, right? And that is to lower that CPA, that cost per acquisition, to as the lower number possible. So what that essentially means is that attribution, in terms of where do we plant credit, what do we credit the ads for, is not exclusive to Facebook ads. It is all of your marketing efforts. So if you're somebody that says, well, Facebook ads don't work for me, like my all the leads are rubbish, they're not qualified or whatever like that, what I would say is like, hey, right, Facebook ads are currently an amplification of your business. What are you doing elsewhere in the business that could qualify more leads on the front end, but also, understand that 1 out of 100 leads could still attribute value to the business. So instead of getting emotional about the 99, let's focus on the one qualified individual who could potentially make the business thousands of revenue.
Yeah.
So that is kind of like my pedestal moment, is like attribution is a myth. You can't tell me that a single ad that you've, paying £20 a day on or whatever is the reason that somebody is or is not signing up. Because what happens is, as we all do, is that we're interested in a service. We've maybe walked past the gym. We've looked at the sign. That's kind of subconsciously entered into our mind. We then see an ad for it tomorrow. And then it's like, okay, it's another association. We then go on the Instagram. We then look at the latest video. That one speaks to us a little bit. We then go on the link in bio, which is the website. We have a quick look through. 2 days later, we see a different ad. We click on that ad because we remember what happened 2 days before. We actually follow through on the funnel. We book an appointment. All the videos that we see in the interim are there to obviously qualify us more in terms of wanting to make that purchase, and then we do it.
Basically, if you want to understand really what Jake's talking about, watch the film Focus.
Yeah.
Just watch the film Focus, and you'll understand exactly what Jake's talking about here.
So what I'm saying is like Facebook ads do work. Like advertising does work. Any advertising works. It's just to what degree it works. So in my head, I'm like, okay, right, Facebook ads are a given. That's what we're doing. That's our acquisition channel. So how do we get better at that? And how do we get better at all the other surrounding marketing efforts that we're currently putting time and focus into in order to bring that cost per acquisition number down? Because I don't mind spending £20 a lead if all leads were qualified and all likely to buy. I don't mind spending £5 a lead if we find the one needle in the haystack that could potentially, obviously, like I said, make the business thousands of in revenue. So I think like we have to be grown-ups and we have to understand as business owners, okay, like we need to market and advertise. So it's just what what channel we choose to do that in, and how can we be consistent and then provide predictable revenue for the business. It isn't just enough to hope and to post content and, just not really focus on any means of acquisition. You have to be all in on at least one channel, and then you have to do everything else within the business to amplify that so that somebody is more likely to sign up. The issue a lot of studio owners do is they just kind of post a few times on Instagram and then wonder why nobody's signing up, or that they haven't received any inbound inquiries as of late. So I think it's just a case of understanding the platforms, understanding that attribution is a myth, and then it's everything you do, not just one singular thing that you should give credit to.
Yeah, I love it. Well summed up. Let's go on to sales. If you go, goodness knows what episode it is, but if you go back here, you'll find.
By the way, can I just cut you? Like, you just ate a whole sandwich whilst I was talking.
Half a sandwich. I just knew that you'd.
It was incredibly difficult to focus when I just saw you just dripping chicken tikka in your cheek.
I knew that you'd ramble on. So now I've got actually.
Right, I'm going to try and find a sandwich now.
Go for it. You can have
Sales.
half of mine.
Yeah.
I did a pod, 6 months ago now, I reckon, where you asked me loads of questions about sales and I answered them and reeled them off. I think it's one thing. I would consider myself a sales specialist. Jake would consider himself a marketing specialist. So those two buckets in this business, I think, will always be performing really well because that's what we love.
And we tend to do what we enjoy, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We
Which
default.
could also be a negative.
Yeah, we default to what we love. And hence, I think ops can be better. But like we obviously started with in-person sales at the studios. Love that process. We kept our sales close rate between 80 and 90%. Then we went to online sales, and we talked about that a lot on the pod, moving across to online sales, especially when we went multi-location. And we're dipped a little sales wise, but I still think we're between 70 and 80%, which is.
Well, I think like more people are showing up and versus I think we're just getting way more people showing up.
Way more consults. Yeah. So like performance wise, it's still been really, really good. I do feel like I just want to talk about the nurturing and getting these calls in, because one thing that we've had and one question that we've had from a lot of our clients is, shall I just kick my sandwich? Shall we be calling my leads? And we've always outsourced that role. So we've always either had our studio manager do it or had an external source do it with SOPs and training. And to us, to me, to you, I don't necessarily think that that's a founder's job. And you spoke about that a lot. So if you are a founder and you have a team around you, I would definitely be hooking that on to an SOP of the studio manager or a head coach or someone like that to make those calls.
Well, I think like unfortunately what happens is that if you're a founder and you phone up 50 leads in your inbox, to which 49 are just a waste of time, that is going to kill your energy for the whole day.
Yeah.
Not only is it a low value task, but you're going to be so emotionally attached to that task and how boring and rubbish it is, that if you then swap that and think, okay, by the end of the day, I'm going to get an end of day report from a VA or my studio manager to say, good news, I've had one person booking a consult today.
Yeah.
You're going to be really pleased, but you haven't experienced the 49 phone calls that individual have made. So it's like you can stay level headed.
Yeah. And a lot of founders have done that task before and they're quite familiar with it. But that doesn't mean you should carry on doing it. It should definitely be outsourced. So what would I do is the question. So what would I do? I would build a script based off your experience, or even get a script from someone that's been there and done it before or coached in sales, in gym sales. I would then hire someone or outsource someone or bring in someone who's already in the internal team to be able to do that every single day. I would give them a KPI of how many calls they need to make based off the list that you have. So I think our studio manager does around 20 calls a day at the moment. I would then make sure that the data is comprised sufficiently. So he is logging the data of who picks up, who calls, who books, consults, etc. So we can get like the really accurate percentages as we go down the funnel. I would then get them to fill in what we used to call it EOD, end of day report, based off how many calls he made, how many answered, how many didn't, how many booked. So you can have that data in your inbox at the end of the day. And I would just repeat and refine that process as you move through.
But again, what you just mentioned there is an effort to then lower CPA. Because remember, cost per acquisition is the metric that we're looking to lower. So the more prospects that you can talk to, the more likely you are to book, the more likely you are to show up, the more likely they are to sign up, the more likely you are to stay.
Yeah.
And so on.
And what annoys me about a lot of studio owners is they might find someone to do this. That might be an internal team member or someone off Fiverr, or even outsource to somewhere like the Philippines or somewhere like that. And they will say to that person, there's a script, call X amount of people, and then they won't do any training with them. They won't check in with them on a daily basis. And a week later, they'll go, 100 calls have been made, nothing booked, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's so childish. And if you have that attitude with things that you do within your business, you don't deserve a business. Frankly. That person should be trained. You should have what we used to call daily huddles with that individual. So going through calls they've made, that they've recorded, going through wins, challenges, all those things on a daily basis to make sure that person's output brings loads of success within the business.
Well, that kind of feeds nicely into operations as well, doesn't it? Because I think something that we've got good at this year, and again, we can still improve, is having these cadences that we try and stay accountable to. So that means having one-to-ones with the team. Every month you have a one-to-one. Obviously, we have the events now that are all in the diary in terms of, so members know what's coming up, and likewise coaches know as well.
Yeah, I mean the cadence is pretty simple, isn't it? From a team perspective, we do a one-to-one every month. That's face-to-face. Yeah. And half of that is about the business changes, things that are happening, and half is about them. Yeah. So we talk a lot about their personal lives and their own businesses in that one-to-one, which I think is great and they love. Every 8 weeks is our program meeting where we'll all get together on a team on Zoom, go over the new program which is incoming, have a chat and have a laugh. Everyone brings a beverage. That's the rule. And then every single quarter we do an event together with members that coaches obviously come to and enjoy. And obviously that's always paid for by us, as it should be, because they give their time to come to those events. And then we do like bonus get-togethers. If we feel like it's been a while, we'll go do something fun. Like last year we played golf. We got together for dinner, paddle, that kind of thing.
And just obviously that's from a team's perspective. Operationally, from the business is to kind of streamline things. For any question that gets asked via email, message, or anything like that, we build a template response from. So it just means that people like Tom, obviously over in location number 2, whenever a question comes in, he looks to his kind of database of templated answers. And if it isn't there, then we'll template one for him. Yeah. And then he can just continue to then respond,
go to that area.
So the amount of questions we get from him are minimal, because again, he's looking at all of these templates which we've refined over time. So that's just something obviously you can start doing as of now if you're listening to this. Even if you're a personal trainer, it's just like any question you get, just template the answer and just log it, and then you've got something there to then look back on. So there's various things like that. We have financial trackers. Everything that we do within GymHQ, which is our Notion operating system, we have team members all involved there. So, it runs like a bit a tight ship. It's just those kind of like moments between the moments that I think we struggle with sometimes in terms of just getting organized with. But like I said, when we're filling the bucket for marketing sales, it's difficult to keep everything full.
And then when you go in higher level within the business, we have a monthly meeting for studio managers that we'll dive into on Zoom. And we have like a framework for that where we go wins, highlights, challenges. We prescribe challenges. Give out any resources and then set actions. Yeah. And that works really well. And then we'll have a monthly finance meeting with our CFO as well. And that's really successful, which brings us nicely onto the finances bucket, which is quite a big bucket. I would say I've always been pretty good at this for the majority of my life, as always having businesses, building P&Ls, cash flows, all that stuff. Been doing it for like 15 years. And Jake and I would say we learned from the best because our CFO is actually our dad. He's had that role in businesses all his life. He's had businesses all his life, so he was perfect for it. He thinks, I think of sales all the time. Jake thinks of marketing all the time. Dad thinks of finances all the time.
What makes me laugh though is that he's very into because obviously he's old school. So part of his role, we wanted to train him up on Google Sheets. I was listening to a podcast the other day and he would like this, where somebody said that Warren Buffett would never be seen dead in an Excel
with a good
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I think he'd probably kind of hang on to that.
Yeah. Let's not tell him that.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously we have financial trackers, P&Ls, projections. We have the P&L, which is collated. Consolidated P&Ls across the
what
locations.
we've started to do, again, to kind of streamline his role, is to have a dashboard per location.
Yeah.
So we can just have a templated dashboard. We just, create quickly for a new location. Within that dashboard, we've got P&L projection, we've got consolidated P&L, we've got expenditure tracker, we've got all of those different things that obviously you need. And he can just go into one place, he can update it dynamically over the course of a year, and he can just send us the link. And we've then got only 2 links instead of what it used to be, which was gazillion different files we had to open.
And papers.
Yeah.
It's funny, the other day in our last finance meeting, Dad was like, cool, so Hadley, profit, well done guys. Yeah, me and Jake high-fived. How's the lost money. That's fine. New business, we get it. Jake and I had to reverse our high five.
Yeah.
And Dad just thinks we're a couple of plebs.
And then what was great is it gives him the perfect opportunity to have a professional moan at us.
Yeah. He loves it.
So he likes just giving us a bollocking, I think, and we sit there and take it.
And we always do it over a pint.
Yeah.
Which is the main thing. So yeah, the finances bucket I think is pretty secure for us, but we do obviously have that support, which is great. So the majority of people listening to this will be doing that themselves. Yeah. But it doesn't mean you can't be really good at it.
No, or
a great book. Sorry, Jake, to interrupt you there. A great book around finances. Profit First.
Yeah.
So if you want to read a book around business finances and how to segment and how to think about it, Profit First is a really good book, guys. So go read that book.
I think that just kind of brings us to the closing point, which is obviously the objection we often get. So we'll work with different studio owners, and they'll say, obviously, there's just one of me, there's 2 of you, and I completely get that. But what that doesn't negate is the ability to be able to be excel in all of these buckets, but not necessarily fill them all. So it just might mean that instead of having a full operating system on Notion with 20, 30 different tables and things to collaborate with in your team, that changes maybe to the 2 or 3 core things that move the needle of the business, and you can always add to them. So I think it's obvious everybody's going to have their strengths and weaknesses, especially when you're opening and launching a studio. But I think it's important not only to lean into those strengths, but also to lean into some of your deficiencies. So for me, for example, finance has never been something that I excel or enjoy, but that doesn't mean to say I shouldn't take the initiative to actually research and get better at it. Because I think what we tend to default to our point earlier, is any strength that we currently have, it's we're just going to spend all of our week getting better at that thing, and then everything else gets neglected. So I think segmenting the different tasks and roles within those buckets is a good thing, because it just means that, yes, you can stay great at the thing that you're great at, but you can also acknowledge and get better at the thing that perhaps you're not so good at. And as long as all those buckets are full to some degree, what we don't want to have is marketing and sales to the brim, and then everything else suffers.
I'm going to end the pod on a paragraph from the book I thought was really great and a lot of people need to hear. I can't tell you how many of my clients start out trying to be all things to all people. They say, oh, you need that? Yes, we do that. And you want those? No problem. Over time, though, their customers and their employees become frustrated, and the business becomes less profitable. The helter-skelter method may have gotten you where you are today and helped you survive the early drought, but to break through the ceiling, you have to create some focus. And that's so true. The amount of people that tag on new sessions to the timetable or add a new membership because this person wanted it. It's
start pricing their memberships lower because they feel like that's going to be the good thing that gives them momentum.
You can't pander to people. You need to build a business that you love. Otherwise, what's the point?
And that means when you're doing your first P&L projection for your studio, factoring in not just you fulfilling all the sessions, but somebody else, and then seeing what the business would actually look like, instead of doing what most people tend to do, which is just doing what they currently do, but under a roof that you now have to pay a lease and business rates and all that type of thing on. So
see it a lot. But guys, hopefully that was useful to you. Now go start to fill your 4 buckets.
Yep.
That's the pod.